Hello, I'm Rebecca Gould, and I have the group Treadle Sewing Machines and More on Facebook. And we were talking about embroidery on the treadle, and some had asked how I do the process. So I will be sharing a series of short video clips about the whole process, and at the end I will also give some resources that you can look back at and gather more information, because I'll just be discussing how I do it. And there are many people that do this and have their own way. And it's not something that's limited to treadles, but it's my chosen way to produce my embroidery work. And I'm really glad to share this with you, because I think there's no greater joy than taking what you do enjoy and sharing it with somebody else that appreciates that. So let's get started. So I happen to have 3 treadles, and I'm only familiar with those treadles. I do not have one that has the bullet bobbin, so I won't be much help to you in that, but maybe perhaps by watching this you will know what to do with your treadle sewing machine that has a bullet. I have a 66 and I have a Singer 15, and I have a black diamond deluxe that is modeled after the 15. Here is my 15 Singer with gingerbread decals. It happens to be my favorite sewing machine out of all my treadles. And I happen to prefer the ones that have the tension knob in the back like this, and also have the bobbin that turns this way. The first thing that I'm going to do when I'm starting embroidery with my machine is I'm going to remove this faceplate. It has 2 screws that I take out there. And then the feed dogs are right here, and I've already loosened these screws. And I'm going to take that out. On this Singer, you remove it from the top. But on the Singer 66, it takes a little bit more finagling, and I will show you where you remove it from on that machine. Here is my Singer 66, and I've already moved the plate, and you can see the feed dogs right here, but you cannot access the screw that holds that in place from the top. So I'm going to close this up, and you have to undo your belt from underneath, and we're going to tilt back the machine. Now on the Singer 66, when looking from underneath, there's a screw right here, and if you unscrew that screw, you can pull the feed dogs up them from the top. I'm not going to do that. I just wanted to show you the place that you can do that from. And here's my Black Diamond Precision Deluxe. And there are 2 ways to do it with this machine. This machine actually has where you can turn this knob right here and lower your feed dogs. But even though it can do that, I actually still prefer to remove my faceplate and remove the feed dogs. These are removed from the top, just like my ginger decaled Singer. Now back to my ginger decaled. Now that I've removed these, I'm going to take the screws and this, and I'm going to put it in a plastic bag and store it in the compartment in my cabinet so I don't lose it. And then assemble this back together just like that. And put the screws in. This little Ziploc bag works great for that. These are the needles that I use in my machine, and I buy them in bulk on Amazon. So thought I'd share that because I know everybody's going to want to know what kind of needle I use. Now let's talk about the bobbin. First, the thread that I use it with all my projects in the bobbin for thread painting or embroidery, however you want to say it. I use this thin white thread. It's a 60 weight, and it is a poly thread, and I got it from Thread Art. I buy it in bulk, and I will have a bunch of bobbins made up so that it's just ready to change the bobbin whenever I need it. And I do not use my treadle to wind the bobbins. I actually have a bobbin winder, and I'll show you a picture of that right now. This is my bobbin winder. I leave it plugged in all the time. I think it winds bobbins wonderfully, and I've tried several kinds, and this is my favorite one. So I cannot see a name brand on it, but I'll just give you a good look here so you can see how it is and maybe find it online. And right behind that, that's a picture of my mother and I when I was quite young. My mother passed away when I was 8 years old, but before she passed away, she taught me how to sew, and I appreciate that so much. It was just diapers for my dolls, but it gave me a start, and she was a beautiful soul. I wish I could have you all over in my home and you could actually feel the tension in this bobbin. What you want to do is have your tension thread a little tight and your upper thread a little bit loose. And I want to show you, this was the latest embroidery thing that I had done. And I showed that in my Facebook group. But this is the front of it. And you can see in the back, you can actually see the bobbin thread has pulled a lot of the top thread through to the back. And that's what you want. And the reason why you don't want it completely solid colored in the back, but you do want the top thread colors to pop down into the back. If you don't do that, then your bobbin thread is going to show through the front and it's going to dilute your picture. And the best way that I know to show you is this is really pretty firm. And what I have actually done is I have 2 bobbin cases. I went ahead and bought another just for doing my embroidery work. So this one's set up for the tension that I like for my embroidery work, even though I actually have my 3 machines, my 3 treadles set up, one for doing straight stitch, one for quilting quilt tops, and then one for my embroidery work. That way, I feel quite spoiled in that. But you know, it's so much nicer when you can just come to the machine and it's set up for that. But if you only have 1 machine, that's a good option, is to actually get another bobbin case. Leave one for your sewing, your straight stitches and regular sewing, and then set up a bobbin for your embroidery. And the best way that I can show you is I can literally lift up my bobbin case by holding this, and I can even shake it some, and it really does not pull out very easily. And then now I can, it's kind of hard to let it roll. I can pull it out, but it is a stiff pulling of the thread. In your regular sewing, you're going to have that much looser. But you don't want it so tight that it's breaking your thread. And so you are going to have to finagle with your machine with the tension. And there is a little tension screw right here. This is for ones that take this kind of bobbin. This is the bobbin case for my Singer 15 with the gingerbread decals, and also the blue sewing machine that I showed you, that's a Japanese clone 15. It takes this kind of bobbin too, but my 66 treadle, it takes it has a different bobbin case, and it works a little bit different. It's a little bit harder to get to. And honestly, it's not my favorite for doing embroidery. I really think the key to being able to do embroidery on any machine is that it's very smooth, very well cut up, doesn't have any burrs, and you have no problems with this machine. It needs to be in excellent top condition. And my 66 is fine for doing straight stitching. I piece quilts on it, I sew garments on it. But I just find that I like my 15 better when it comes to the embroidery. I don't like messing with the bobbin case, so I like to, with my 66. So I like to just set that and leave that and not have to finagle, because it is harder to adjust the bobbin case in the 66. But I will show you a little clip of that bobbin case. Okay, here's the 66, and in going into the bobbin case, right over here is the screw. It's right in there. And it's very difficult to get to, but this is how you adjust it. Now you can take this all apart. And really, if you're going to adjust this very much at all, you need to remove this screw and pull both these pieces out, and then adjust it, and then come back and put it back in. And it's a little bit persnickety, so it's a bit bigger of a deal. And that's practically the only reason why I just leave this one for straight stitch. I set for straight stitch, and then I don't have to worry about it. Because you may need to adjust it if you're doing sewing with different types of threads, and even sometimes different colors will need different tension. Now here I'm wanting to show you how I work with my upper tension, and I do finagle with this a little bit, and I have different thread holders for different type threads. If I'm using my regular thread spool, then I do put that on here. But if I'm using the silky thread or a thicker thread, this is actually my chain stitching thread. But if I'm wanting the look to be more like hand embroidery, I will use that in the machine. And I like to put it on a way that it can be fed off horizontally. And this is actually from my spinning wheel. I use this to ply threads when I'm spinning my wool to make yarn after I've already spun it. So you might not have access to one of these. I bought this from the Ashford company, but maybe you can find another way to make it to where you can thread yours off horizontally. And then if I have this type of spool, I will use this spool thread. And the majority of the time I am using embroidery thread that comes off the spool this way. Now the other thing I want to point out is when I do, I like to have this pulled in front and coming in at an angle here. Otherwise, if you don't, this thread will get caught up in your wheel and in this mechanism here, and it's a royal pain in the butt to clean out. Ask me how I know. So it's best to have it come at an angle where it's coming this way, and you can avoid this. Another thing that I would like to share with you is when I'm using these threads, I like to have 2 felt pads. I'll put one down and then another, and I like to use the sewer's aid. I don't know if you can see that well. Oops, sorry, didn't mean to jostle you. Sewer's aid, and I will actually put a couple drops in between these felt pads. And then I will put my thread in between those pads one time around. And then I will actually weight it down a little bit with a few bobbins just to hold that thread down there, and then go ahead and thread it the way I normally do. I just thought those tips might be helpful in how I feed off the thread onto my machine, because it's very important that you have a smooth threading and it doesn't hold back any. Well, that concludes the information I have for setting up your treadle for embroidery or thread painting, whichever way you want to call it. And the next video clip will be on setting up your hoop and getting that ready to start sewing. And I like to end my videos a special way in memory of my sister, who was a great friend of mine. And now that I'm meeting new friends, I just would like to share that with you. Good night. God bless. And don't forget to pray.